One of the things I do when I start working on a vocal, and I did it here and I didn't actually activate anything, was I set up my vocal effects. I kind of grouped everything and then I sent all the vocal tracks to this one track called All Vocals. I usually make a group for all my effects. I call it vocal effects because I separate my vocal effects from my music effects, because I typically will route all the vocal effects to the vocal aux. That way, if I ever have to mute the vocals, there's not like a reverb or delay of the vocal happening in the background when I'm trying to print instrumentals and all that other stuff. I always like separate the two. These are my vocal effects, so I just really quickly made a eighth note delay, and I'm using this plugin from T-Racks, which is Echoplex, which is a kind of a Echoplex recreation, which is a lo-fi tape delay kind of thing, and it sounds really cool. I just put that in there just because that's one of the effects that I like to hear, and I was just testing stuff out and seeing how it worked. And I also used this plugin from iZotope as well called the Classic Plate, which is a lexicon recreation, like a 480L recreation, and this gold plate setting is chef's kiss. Okay, I really like it a lot. It doesn't have a super high reverb time. You have actually a lot of options here. I always like to use a little pre-delay on my reverbs. I always do this. A lot of my vocals will have this on them. This is a recreation of the Eventide dual pitch processing patch on the old Eventide harmonics devices. It's a lot of people do something similar. It's like a chorus kind of flanger. Basically what I'm doing is I'm pitching whatever I'm sending to it up and down, plus and minus 9 cents, which isn't enough for you to detect a huge pitch difference, but it does give it kind of like a chorus kind of feel. The pitch are slightly delayed, not enough for it to sound like an actual delay, just right below the Haas effect, which is around 25 milliseconds, just enough for your brain to notice that they're not exactly the same, but not far enough so your brain notices it as a delay. So I'll kind of like show you really quickly what I mean by that. So this is the DPP, which stands for dual pitch processor. Don't waste my time. And I'm going to turn it up really loud so you guys hear it. Don't you know a woman like me is hard to find? Oh, don't waste my precious time. Do you want me? Or do you want me in the arms of another? All right. Did you guys hear that? Did you hear the difference? So that's you know, basically like a, you know, like a chorus pedal or whatever on a guitar. It was really popular in the 80s. So if you listen to like Genesis records and stuff like that from the 80s, you'll hear that stuff on the vocals, like, you know, Phil Collins in The Air Tonight. There's like that kind of effect on his vocal. And what this does is it gives you like a little bit of kind of harmonic content, a little bit of like these weird little harmonies, almost kind of off. And because I pan it hard left and right, it spreads the width of the vocal a little bit and gives it a little bit of texture. And I feel like it fills up the stereo image a little bit for the vocal and creates kind of like this, almost like a halo around the vocal. I'll play it again so you hear the difference. Don't waste my time. It's dry. Don't you know a woman like me is hard to find? Don't waste my precious time. Do you want me? Or do you want me in the arms of another? You should know me by now. What? We've been something and nothing for a long time and many nights. It does give me like this little bit of sizzle on the edges of the vocal. In the grand scheme of things, when everything's in, it's not that noticeable. But as soon as I mute it, like you feel the vocal kind of lose energy and kind of pull back. So I really like how this helps the vocal kind of sit where it's supposed to be. I created that reverb and that delay because I knew I was going to use it and I wanted to hear where the vocal was sitting, just kind of like an idea. So I'll put the reverb in and then I'll take it out. Here you go. Don't waste my time. Don't you know a woman like me is hard to find? Oh, don't waste my precious time. Do you want me? Or do you want me in the arms of another? I chose a reverb that wasn't super long. I chose a shorter one on purpose to mask that sound of that room. I wanted it to overtake it and cover it up a little bit. The interesting thing about this is that once I sent the mix to them, the artist was, can I have more reverb? So I actually ended up using more reverb and like longer reverb. But as I was building the mix initially, I wasn't doing a lot of reverb. One, because I'm not a huge fan of reverb. I actually don't really like reverb that much. I will go away from it as much as I can. Doesn't mean I don't like time-based effects, but one effect that I use it to almost replace reverb a lot is I'll use an eighth note delay, which is that one that you saw from that Echoplex. And purposefully, I will use one that's dark because I don't want you to hear the delays. I don't want you to hear the taps. I want you to more feel the texture of something happening in the background and not it being so like overt. I'm gonna mute the reverb and I'm gonna just play the delay.
Don't waste my time. Don't you know a woman like me is hard to find? Oh, don't waste my precious time. Do you want me? Or do you want me in the arms of a night?
A lot of times for me, that will replace a big reverb, and I will even go as far as making it even darker. You can't even hear like consonants or anything. It's just like this whoa, 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 whoa kind of thing in the background. I feel like that fills the space similar to a reverb, and is not as distracting as a reverb can be sometimes. It's like a Echoplex kind of recreation. So this has input, it syncs to your BPM. You have the sustain here, which is basically a feedback. It's pretty dark and it can get really gnarly, just like a tape echo would. It's a pretty cool effect from T-Racks. They're actually a really good job. There's a couple of companies that make Echoplexes and Space Echoes and whatever recreation plugin companies. They're pretty easy to get. If you're in a situation where you don't have any of this stuff, this effect is pretty easy to recreate. You can just grab a simple, just Avid delay. So I could just grab a simple mod delay. I typically will just do a low pass, maybe to about 1200 hertz, maybe 800. That's pretty much it. And then I'll just send my feedback a little bit, nothing crazy. You can have a similar effect to that. And if you want to get crazy, add a spring reverb to it. That would make it sound a lot more like a space echo, or just any like dark reverb behind it. You can just make cool effects. Sometimes I'll put like a flanger or a chorus on it as well, depending on the track, just to kind of give it some movement. But you can recreate this with anything really. Don't feel like you need to get that plugin. Like that could be done with a lot of stuff. With vocals, it's typically eighth and a quarter. I'll use the quarter to do accents. Eighth note is just going on in the background. Anything other than that, like any special, like if I'm doing like some reggae stuff and it's like a dub, like like triplet stuff or dotted stuff, I just go with the groove of the song.